It's Friday, July 30th, 2010. Dynamite by Tayo Cruz is playing everywhere. It's almost inescapable. Apple has just released the first iPad, revolutionizing the world of touchscreen tablets. Instagram is yet to be released to the public. You log onto your computer and boot up Minecraft version alpha. The 7th edition of Notch's secret updates is out. Secret Friday 7. Powered minecarts are in. They need coal, and they only push, not drag. A few secret things. I'll run the SMP server every now and then over the weekend, but there's nothing new in there yet. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cool. You work on your house. It's made out of a combination of cobblestone and wooden planks. Somewhere in the process, you run out of coal for torches, so you decide to go mining for more. While you're caving, you stumble upon a monster room, a 7x7 cobblestone box with a spawner and chests inside. You fight off the zombies and claim your prize. What's this? A music disc. 13. A quick Google search reveals the recipe for a jukebox, the block you need to play the disc. You've been saving your diamonds, and so you craft it and place it in your wood and cobblestone house. You insert the disc, ready to listen to the music. But it isn't music, at least not what you expected. Dissonant bells echo around you. Pattering, discordant ringing fills your headphones, not quite like rain. Something clangs. It cuts out. Slowly, it fades back in. A distant explosion. Water splashing. Static swells in your ears, and the track ends. In its early infancy, Minecraft was worlds away from the game that we play today. What we see when we log on now is vibrant and diverse, rich with biomes, animals, and details that make the world feel alive. In 2010, Minecraft had little more to offer than simple trees and rolling hills, with the occasional chicken, cow, and pig. The first biomes would only be added in October that year. It was a liminal, lonely world. Mist obscured the edges of your vision. Despite its irresistible charm, or perhaps because of it, there was a palpable, eerie feeling that pervaded the game. It felt empty. When you were a child, were you scared of the closet? Of what lurked under your bed, just out of view? A child's imagination is a powerful thing, yet to be tempered by the mundanity of learned adulthood. Anything feels possible, even a monster in the closet, a hand reaching over the end of your bed, something beyond your comprehension, beyond your understanding. On July 31st, a day after the update that introduced the music discs, a user on the Minecraft forum posted a story, supposedly copied from an anonymous post on 4chan, about what happened when the writer listened to the music disc 13. In it, an entity follows them out of their mine, recognizable by their two white eyes. Included in the post was a video that played the song from the disc. On August 1st, a user posted on the same forum, complaining about seeing the same white eyes everywhere. Included in the post was the same video, and if you zoom in the bottom left corner, just barely visible are two white dots. Later in August, the following image was posted on 4chan. I'd recently spawned a new world in single-player Minecraft. Everything was normal at first as I began chopping down trees and crafting a workbench. I noticed something move amongst the dense fog. I have a very slow computer, so I have to play with tiny render distance. I thought it was a cow, so I pursued it, hoping to grab some hides for armor. It wasn't a cow, though. Looking back at me was another character, with the default skin, but his eyes were empty. I saw no name pop up, and I double-checked to make sure I wasn't in multiplayer mode. He didn't stay long. He looked at me and quickly ran into the fog. I pursued out of curiosity, but he was gone. I continued on with the game, not sure what to think. As I expanded the world, I saw things that seemed out of place for the random map generator to make. 2x2 tunnels in the rocks, small, perfect pyramids made of sand in the ocean, and groves of trees with all their leaves cut off. I would constantly think I saw the other player in the deep fog, but I never got a better look at him. I tried increasing my render distance to far whenever I thought I saw him, but to no avail. I saved the map and went on the forums to see if anyone else had found the pseudo player. There were none. I created my own topic, telling of the man and asking if anyone had a similar experience. The post was deleted within 5 minutes. I tried again, and the topic was deleted even faster. I received a PM from a username Herobrine containing one word, stop. When I went to look at Herobrine's profile, the page 404'd. I received an email from another forum user. He claimed the mods can read the forum user messages, so we were safer using email. The emailer claimed that he had seen the mystery player too and had a small directory of other users who had seen him as well. Their worlds were littered with obviously man-made features as well, and described their mystery player to have no pupils. About a month passed until I heard from my informant again. Some of the people who had encountered the mystery man had looked into the name Herobrine and found that name to be frequently used by a Swedish gamer. After some further information gathering, it was revealed to be the brother of Notch, the game's developer. I personally emailed Notch and asked him if he had a brother. It took him a while, but he emailed me back a very short message. I did, but he is no longer with us. I haven't seen the mystery man since our first encounter, and I haven't noticed any changes to the world other than my own. I was able to press print screen when I first saw him. Here's the only evidence I have of his existence. Notch and everyone involved with Minecraft has repeatedly denied the actual existence of Herobrine, and it's pretty obvious this post is just a scary internet story someone cooked up. Still, on my old Xbox 360, one of the messages on the loading screen was an ominous, "We think 4J Studios has removed Herobrine from the console game, but we're not too sure." Adding to the mystique of this strange figure, Mojang themselves started to include removed Herobrine as a change in every update. Despite no real evidence of its existence and little more than a few hastily written creepypasta threads to build it up, the idea of Herobrine had taken on a life of its own. Perhaps it was something about Minecraft's endless procedurally generated worlds. Perhaps it was the middle stages of the internet's exponential growth, coupled with Minecraft's own unprecedented explosion into the mainstream. Perhaps it was all of this in one. For a child in the 2010s, when the internet was an unknown, a novelty, it was hard to discern what was real and what was not. Was it really so crazy for this thing to exist in the game? It scared 8-year-old me. I jumped at cave sounds. I had to look twice to make sure a zombie had its arms out in front of it instead of at its sides. When my friends built effigies in my worlds as a joke, I thought my Minecraft world was possessed. It was infectious, scary, and I kept coming back. There was something irresistible about the unknown, lurking just outside what I knew to be true. At school, my friends would tell me about their encounters with Herobrine, and I would tell them mine. Maybe we were all lying, building on the story that we had already heard, and maybe we weren't. It was almost too easy to believe that something lurked in Minecraft's void, waiting and watching. What do you think of when you hear the words cosmic horror? Maybe you think of tentacled monsters writhing in the deep. Maybe you think of dark cults summoning old gods long forgotten by the rest of mankind, of crumbling cities submerged under eons of the ocean's pull. You wouldn't be wrong to think any of these things. Over the decades, cosmic horror has grown from a fledgling concept to an entire subgenre of literature, games, and movies. its tropes have firmly affixed themselves within pop culture. But what is cosmic horror? What does it mean, and what separates it from other genres of fiction? The forefather of cosmic or eldritch horror is almost universally considered to be H.P. Lovecraft. Such is his pervasive influence on the genre that it's commonly referred to as Lovecraftian horror, and many of the tropes that stem from it can be directly attributed to him. The man himself, H.P. Lovecraft, was an early 1900s author who published his work mostly through pulp magazines like Weird Tales, and never achieved any significant recognition during his lifetime. His most influential work largely centered around the theme of cosmicism, a philosophy concerned with humanity's insignificance within the grand scope of the universe. A common outcome within these short stories and novellas was the narrator's descent into madness when confronted with powers and entities they could not understand. Over the decades since his lifetime, his writing's popularity surged, and the stylistic and thematic elements of his work have gone on to have largely independent influences on subsequent art. Figures like Cthulhu and the trope of dark cults summoning eldritch deities have become pervasive in fantasy and science fiction works in the 20th and 21st century. Games like Terraria, Skyrim, and Elden Ring all contain allusions to the stylistic influence of Lovecraft. Slimy, biological architecture, tentacles, monsters from another realm, all of these are consistently present in Lovecraft's work. Still, these games, despite their clear influences, are not considered Lovecraftian or even cosmic horror, because while they contain visual elements akin to Lovecraft's mythos, they do not adhere to the philosophy of his work. By nature, video games as a medium are an imperfect vessel for cosmic horror. The core idea of empowering the player in the story goes against the overarching theme of sweeping insignificance. Open-world games suffer less from these issues compared to linear, story-based ones. Linear stories struggle to give the same weight to creatures beyond our comprehension because they're forced to include them to justify their subject matter. When we begin to play a game labeled as cosmic horror, we go in with an expectation of what we will experience. And so when our expectations are confirmed with a reveal that is never as cosmic as it needs to be, it feels like a letdown. Open-world games, by comparison, offer a player-controlled experience where what lies beyond our perception is always in question. Unlike linear games, open-world games create the illusion of a world that is not designed for you. The empty spaces outside of our perception could contain anything we can imagine. Despite not having many Lovecraftian stylistic elements, Subnautica is a perfect example of this. Anyone who's encountered a ghost leviathan at the crater's edge can attest to the visceral, horrifying experience. Thalassophobia, the fear of deep water, is in many ways a fear of the emptiness and of what it could contain. To a human, the black depths of the ocean are little different from the vast cosmic void. One of my favorite Lovecraftian video games is Dredge. On the surface, it's a simple fishing simulator. You control a boat, going around discovering new islands and the creatures that inhabit them. Over time, you start to notice weirder and weirder phenomena, hinting at something insidious lurking below the waves, twisting the natural life into warped versions of themselves. As the game progresses, this intensifies, and depending on the ending, only then do you get an answer as to why. Dredge works because it never reveals its hand until the game's final moments. The game relies on its unsettling atmosphere for the horror, alluding to the eldritch only through its influence. For a game concerning something beyond our comprehension, the only logical conclusion seems to be to hide it. The human imagination, as all of us know because we were all children once, is more powerful than any monster on the screen. In all visual mediums, the horror genre is one of diminishing returns. The monsters we watch grow less scary with each exposure. They become familiar, the unknown becomes known. Though this affects every subgenre of horror, Cosmic horror is the worst when it comes to this. To show it is to make it tangible, and then it ceases to be cosmic horror at all. So, what if we don't show it? Or, instead of really showing it, we show an 8-bit, low-resolution version of it, compatible with our limited faculties of understanding. That couldn't possibly work. Could it? It sounds insane at first to claim that the best-selling video game of all time is a wolf in sheep's clothing, stuffed full of eldritch monsters hiding under pixelated skins. But have you ever looked at Minecraft? I mean, really, look, humor me. What would they look like if they weren't pixel art? The Ghast is a perfect example. Floating white masses with tendrils trailing behind them, wailing like tortured animals. In the Mob Menagerie article about the Ghasts, they're described as large incorporeal beings with unknown origins. Though they look ghost-like, they aren't considered undead within the game's code. The first use of the word ghast to describe a creature was by H.P. Lovecraft himself in the story The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. It isn't just the ghast, though. Some of them, like zombies or the Wither, would evoke intense body horror, whereas others, like the Creeper, are almost impossible to imagine within the visual framework of the real world. Minecraft wouldn't work if it wasn't pixelated. The game that we participate in derives its magic from its lack of information. We don't know anything about the world, the true details of the creatures that inhabit it, or what they even really look like. We are given only a small glimpse through an 8-bit lens filtered down to something we can grapple with. Within the game, constrained to a minimal resolution, these things are easier to accept. Alongside its visual style, Minecraft's lack of a cohesive narrative or story make it the perfect vessel to convey a Lovecraftian world. Instead of falling into the trap of explaining things to us, therefore robbing them of their mystery, it allows us to explore them on our own, devoid of any context. To an even greater extent than Dredge or Subnautica, we are left to infer from the little information we have. In The Call of Cthulhu, one of Lovecraft's most famous short stories, Cthulhu's tomb is the sunken city of R'lyeh. He describes it as a coastline of mingled mud, ooze, and weedy cyclopean masonry, which can be nothing less than the tangible substance of Earth's supreme terror. The nightmare corpse city of R'lyeh, loathsomely redolent of spheres and dimensions apart from ours. And while the more intense elements of non-Euclidean geometry might not be present, Minecraft's ocean monument bears several similarities to R'lyeh. Sunken under the ocean, it is winding and confusing, clearly not built for human habitation. The prismarine blocks of the ocean monument resemble what Lovecraft described as cyclopean masonry, a kind of stonework found in Bronze Age Greece. The Elder Guardian's effect invades the minds of any visitors, preventing them from breaking the monument. And, as the Guardian's name suggests, they're clearly protecting the monument for a reason, but there is little to suggest as to what. In the same way that Lovecraft's view of the universe is one of indifference, the world of Minecraft is also indifferent to our presence within it. It doesn't ask to be explained. It doesn't offer any reasoning for the bizarre aspects of it, any justifications for the unearthly creatures. Outside of the gameplay itself, the world of Minecraft does not feel meant for us, the character. The villagers are the closest thing we have to other people, and they're visually nothing like us. All the other people that used to inhabit the world have long since disappeared, or changed into something else, warped over immeasurable time to be unrecognizable. That is not dead, which can eternal lie, and with strange eons, even death may die. Despite the extensive otherworldly mythos of his stories, Lovecraft was not religious, but instead a man whose belief was in a fundamentally structured scientific universe. With the rapidly developing scientific pursuit of the 20th century beginning to push out religion as the dominant view of the world, the idea that humans are not the center of the universe was beginning to take precedence. Lovecraft's work took this to the extreme, not just positing humans as insignificant, but that the pursuit of knowledge in itself might lead to truths too terrible for our human faculties to bear. These revelations often led to madness in the characters of his stories, but in others we see the recurring theme of the collapse of civilization brought upon by eldritch influence. Lovecraft saw himself as born into the wrong time and was obsessed with what he saw as the deterioration of modern society. His writing was constantly foretelling the end, the doom that was to come. While Lovecraft's works were obsessed with the collapse, the world of Minecraft is one where the collapse has already happened. The world of Minecraft is one of aftermath. Wherever you go, there are reminders of the people that used to inhabit the land, the civilization they had built long since faded and crumbled. Abandoned mineshafts, trailside ruins, ancient cities. The evidence of what was is abundantly clear, and yet the only trace of the people these places contained are the zombies and skeletons that rise from the earth each night. Whatever happened to them, it happened a long, long time ago. Their creations swallowed by the earth and the inexorable march of time. If you're lucky, or perhaps if you seek it out, you might stumble upon one of the rarest of these lost structures, the Stronghold. Buried deep in the earth, built of stone brick beginning to crumble under the weight of time, the Stronghold gives you very few hints as to its purpose. Among the many rooms and winding corridors are vacant jail cells and a dusty library. Whoever lived here, it was for long enough that they felt it necessary to bring their books. Most important of all, though, is the portal room. Indestructible and ominous. If you make enough eyes of Ender to fill its frame, a black portal will open, taking you to the end dimension. Though Minecraft does not make anything explicit, one of the many theories of what happened to these ancient people is that the Stronghold was a last resort, built as a refuge to escape whatever brought upon the fall. The portal was their last-ditch effort to leave if all else failed. When it did, they fled to the new dimension, and there they found themselves trapped by the Ender Dragon, the guardian of the end. Trapped in this bizarre place with a diet of only reality-altering food, they warped. They became Endermen. They built their own civilization in this strange dimension, End Cities. Where the ocean monument provides some similarities to the strange architecture of a sunken city like Relay, the End Cities are otherworldly. They don't seem to adhere to the physical laws of the world. Ships float on empty space. Corridors stretch out into the void, held up by nothing at all. It looks upside down. It looks impossible. It looks wrong. Adding to this theory is the name of the advancement you get when you defeat the Ender Dragon, named simply Free the End. Still, there's a puzzle piece that's missing. The civilization, before they collapsed, were clearly capable of building large structures and sophisticated traps. They were advanced. What was it that could push such a civilization to the brink? Dotted throughout the overworld of Minecraft are numerous ruined nether portals leading to the namesake dimension, the Nether, a place inhabited by a number of strange creatures and stranger structures. One of these structures is the Nether Fortress, a monolithic construct of dark nether brick, bridging out over the lava lakes of the Nether and home to a couple of mobs who aren't found anywhere else. The Blaze, who patrol to unknown purpose, aggressively flaming any and all adventurers who enter their domain. These seem to be created by whoever built the Nether Fortress as guardians. The Wither Skeletons, twisted, charred monsters that vaguely resemble their regular counterparts. They are naturally hostile to the Piglins, the native sentient race of the Nether. If you kill enough of them, you can acquire their skulls, and with 3 such skulls and a specific construction of soul sand, through an occult ritual, you can summon the Wither. One of the major recurring themes in the work of H.P. Lovecraft is the pursuit of knowledge leading to the uncovering of truths too terrible for the human mind to comprehend. It is common for the protagonist to go mad when confronted with knowledge of their insignificance within the universe. In the Call of Cthulhu, this comes along with the return of Cthulhu, a great old one. The Wither is a force of unrepentant destruction, more powerful than almost any other creature one can face in Minecraft. Ignoring any of the game's undead mobs, it solely attacks anything that lives. One of Minecraft's paintings is a depiction of how to summon it. Is it a guide, or is it a warning? If the people who fled to the end are from the same civilization who built the Nether Fortress, who eventually turned into the Wither skeletons, then the reasoning for their departure begins to take form. The theme of Lovecraft's work, of dabbling in powers beyond our understanding, seems to be the cause of the fall of this civilization. Of course, thematically, resembling Eldritch Horror is not enough to label Minecraft as the best cosmic horror game of all time. For most of Minecraft's existence, the connections were loose, mostly inferring from what little information we were given. In that respect, things didn't change for some time. In November 2012, a second music disc was added to Minecraft. In keeping with its predecessor, it was named 11, and unlike all the other discs in the game, it had a unique battered and chipped appearance, hinting at the fate of its previous owner. Everything about it was ominous. The track itself lasted 1 minute, 11 seconds, and 111 milliseconds. Unlike its predecessor, 11 was much less vague, perhaps even more than any other thing in Minecraft. 11 tells a story. Constricted to audio, it is difficult to tell what's going on, but not impossible. The monster at the end of 11 was a mystery for a long time. In keeping with 13's association with Herobrine, some thought 11 was C418's continuation of the story, somehow tying into the previous disc. Some of the cave sounds that you can hear in 13 can even be heard in the background of 11. On June 7th, 2022, the Wild update was released to Minecraft. Compared to the previous Caves and Cliffs update, which completely revamped the world generation of the game, the Wild update was much less of an overhaul, but it was no less significant. Because up until the Wild update, Minecraft toyed with being a horror game. It had scary elements, sure, made child-friendly by the pixelated skins they hid under, but it was in no way genuinely scary, at least not intentionally. The Wild update changed that. The Deep Dark is about as Lovecraftian as a game can get. The similarities are so staggering that listing them all would be tedious. Visually, the connection is immediately clear. Skulk, the material that covers the Deep Dark, almost perfectly fits Lovecraft's tendency to represent eldritch influence through gelatinous, slimy, visceral textures. Stepping into the Deep Dark feels like walking through a living thing. Supported by the Skulk sensors, shriekers, and catalysts, it feels like one massive eldritch organism, seeping into the world, huge and alien. Reinforcing the ancient, alien feeling is the fact that no mobs spawn in the Deep Dark. Whatever it is beyond the creatures that inhabit the Minecraft world, good or bad. It is another thing entirely. Walking through the Deep Dark, in a way, is like walking through Minecraft in its early days, the feeling of Herobrine around any corner, tucked at the back of your mind. But this time, you aren't alone. There is something else, just as much a part of the organism as the slime that coats the cave walls, and the sensors and membranes that react to the sounds that you make. If you have subtitles enabled in the game, you'll see messages before it appears. The first 4 times you set off a skulk shrieker, the game will warn you of what is to come. The Warden is terrifying. I'm no longer the child that I was when I played Minecraft all those years ago. It doesn't matter. I avoid the deep dark like the plague. I can't handle it. You can't fight it. You aren't even supposed to. If you do, by some miracle, manage to kill it, it only drops a single skulk catalyst, something already in abundance in the deep dark. In the words of Brandon Pierce, the Warden is a force of nature, not a boss. When a tornado is barreling towards you, you don't try to kill it, you run away. The Warden is exactly the same. Like Cthulhu, an old one of Lovecraft stories, the best you can do is avoid it. Don't summon it. If it emerges, run from it, hide from it, hope it doesn't notice you. The Warden is a force beyond that of the Wither or of the Ender Dragon. It is a being from the cosmic beyond, seeping into our world. Its influence felt through the skulk that creeps through caves, separate and all the same, uncanny and unlike any natural-born being of our universe. And if you, brave adventurer, make your way all the way to the bottom of the deep dark, you might be lucky enough to find an ancient city, the biggest of Minecraft's forgotten structures, buried as deep as the world allows. Here, even more so than the Nether or the End, the evidence of this civilization's tampering with forces beyond them is clear. In the center of the city is a vacant portal-like structure, built of an indestructible material. Its shape resembles the Warden's head. Underneath the portal, in the building below, are a number of rudimentary redstone contraptions, some of them using the skulk itself. In keeping with Minecraft's tradition, the Deep Dark brought with it the 3rd installment of the numbered music discs. Scattered about chests in the ancient city, you can find fragments of it, and if you are brave enough to seek out the 9 needed to craft the disc, your reward is another mystifying track, number 5. Though it is hard to tell exactly, at the end it sounds as if a portal is being lit, and the Warden's scream can be heard through it. The skulk is everywhere in the ancient city. Hallways of the city have wool-lined floors, the only material that doesn't trigger the skulk's vibration sensors. Whoever inhabited this place, once they learned they couldn't contain it, they clearly tried to live with it for a time. In their human folly, they thought they could overcome it, adapt to it, but the skulk, the Warden, it didn't care about the humans that were there. In true Lovecraftian fashion, it was indifferent. All that it did was consume, every death feeding the skulk's inexorable advance, every soul trapped in the Warden's beating chest. Similar to the mythos of Lovecraft, which has multiple old ones and ancient races, the Elder Guardians and their ocean monument are completely separate from the Skulk and the Warden, though their names imply similar roles within the world of Minecraft. And in the abandoned buildings of the long-collapsed civilization, there are hints that the people knew of these threats to their existence, that these were not separate peoples, but one. In the constructed trial chambers, the breezes bear striking similarities to that of the blazes. Carved on the red sandstone of the overworld is a depiction of the Wither. One of the pottery shards found among the ruins that litter the overworld is called Mourner. When you find 4 and put together the pot, the figure on it is the Warden. This was a civilization beset on all sides by horrors of their own creation, powers they could not understand nor contain. It consumed them. One of the other pottery shards is named Friend. It depicts the face of a villager, showing that, for a time, these peoples lived together in harmony. But the villagers are still here. How did the villagers survive when the others were lost to time? In the Illagers, the bad guys of Minecraft, we might have our answer. In Minecraft's mob bestiary, they are described as being expelled from the villages for their unspeakable activities. Instead, they live in outposts and woodland mansions far from the villagers that shunned them. Among the many rooms of the woodland mansions, we can find hints as to what they're doing out there. Most of the rooms are innocuous enough. Bedrooms, dining rooms, offices and libraries, everything they need to live their isolated lifestyle. Among the rooms, though, are jail cells, some of which contain allays, magical, pixie-like beings. Evokers, the most powerful of the Illagers, use twisted magic and summon Vexes, aggressive, transformed versions of the passive allays. One of the other rooms in the woodland mansion is the altar room, where one of the evokers always spawns. This is where they presumably conduct their forbidden magic, twisting things into unnatural shapes. In perhaps one of the darkest theories of Minecraft, Ravagers, the mounts upon which the Illagers ride when raiding a village, bear striking similarities to the villagers themselves. But most important of all is one of the secret rooms of the woodland mansion. Inside is a wool structure, resembling something we've seen before. The Illagers are dabbling in the same powers that brought upon the end of the people that came before. The villagers owe their long-lasting survival to their ignorance and their unwillingness to seek the knowledge that destroyed their past friends. The Illagers are their dark reflection, on a path like those who came and went before them. The Illagers aren't alone in the dark oak forest, though. In October of 2024, Minecraft released Bundles of Bravery, a bundle and minor update for the Java edition of Minecraft. Included in it was a new mob and a small biome, the Creaking and the Pale Garden. The Creaking is the second mob added to Minecraft that was not meant to be fought. It behaves like a weeping angel, an otherworldly being that is quantum locked, meaning it can only move when unobserved. The Creaking, when you're looking at it, stands still. Only when out of sight does it scurry towards the player. Those who watched Doctor Who as a child can attest, weeping angels are perhaps one of the scariest monster designs of all time. Not only that, but the very concept fits cosmic horror. When perceived, they are simple statues, incapable of movement. Only when out of perception do they rush towards you, closing distance faster than seems possible. The Creaking takes clear inspiration from this core concept. The only way to kill it is to break its creaking heart, hidden somewhere in the Pale Garden. Like the Warden and the Skulk, the Pale Garden and the Creaking seem to be entirely separate from the other hostile mobs in the game. Illagers, despite their embrace of dark magic, run away from the Creaking. It doesn't have allegiances. Like the Warden, it's a force of nature. The more Minecraft leans into these creature designs, things that aren't meant to be fought but avoided, biomes that feel out of place, and the ruins of a crumbled civilization, the clearer its connection to the Lovecraftian mythos and themes becomes. Any piece on H.P. Lovecraft would be incomplete without mentioning the less talked about aspects of his philosophy and themes. His influence is felt throughout all of pop culture, and yet his legacy is not restricted solely to the fictional worlds he created. H.P. Lovecraft did not only write novellas and short stories for his submissions to horror periodicals. In fact, much of what we know about the man and his personal philosophy comes from his extensive writing of letters, journals, and poems, dwarfing that of his fiction. In these letters, especially in his earlier years, the depth of his racist and xenophobic beliefs towards non-Anglo-Saxon races is abundantly clear. He wrote extensively of his disdain for Jews and his belief in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Of African Americans, he wrote openly about how he viewed them as a lesser, a halfway between beast and man. One of his greatest fears was of miscegenation, the mixing of races, thinking it would dilute the purity of the white man. Look no further than The Shadow over Innsmouth, one of the most famous works of his lifetime. In The Shadow over Innsmouth, the main character encounters people in the namesake town, whom he described as having queer, narrow heads with flat noses and bulgy, starry eyes, the result of their interbreeding with a race of fish people called the Deep Ones. In the story, the human sacrifices that happen are regarded as less horrifying than the idea of interbreeding. His racist views of anyone he saw as other lined up with his preoccupation with the terminal decline of the West. In a similar way to how the terror of Lovecraft's deities were beyond comprehension, he too feared what he could not understand nor control. The cultists of H.P. Lovecraft's worlds, the people set on summoning the old gods and bringing about the end, were a thinly veiled representation of his views on non-Anglo-Saxon races. In the same way that he saw Jews or African Americans as lesser than human, aiding the fall of the West through miscegenation, so too were the cultists viewed as lesser, bringing about the collapse through eldritch means. It can be made no more obvious than in The Call of Cthulhu, where he describes a group of captured Cthulhu worshippers. The prisoners all proved to be men of a very low, mixed-blooded, and mentally aberrant type. Most were seamen, and a sprinkling of Negroes and mulattoes, largely West Indians or Brava Portuguese from the Cape Verde Islands, gave a coloring of voodooism to the heterogeneous cult. But before many questions were asked, it became manifest that something far deeper and older than Negro fetishism was involved. Degraded and ignorant as they were, the creatures held with surprising consistency to the central idea of their loathsome faith. H.P. Lovecraft was a scared, deeply flawed man, and it is impossible to separate his personal worldview from the philosophy of his art. Lovecraftian horror is rooted in fear of what you cannot understand, of what you cannot control, of what is so beyond you as to reduce you to insignificance. His existential nihilistic view was informed by a world that was rapidly evolving, the white man's seed at the center losing its hold. Cosmic horror, despite how much it has evolved since Lovecraft's time, remains fundamentally unchanged as a worldview. It posits itself as the opposite of anthropocentric storytelling, but not out of a greater respect and understanding of the world around us. Instead, it is fear and the unknowable that drives it. In cosmic horror, the human is never in control. The powers of the universe are beyond us. Even perceiving them in their true form would drive us to madness, raise the foundations of our structured worldview. Cosmic horror deals with existential dread, the crushing weight of our own insignificance, the cold expanse of an unkind, uncaring universe. And perhaps, in that way, the most important way, Minecraft is not cosmic horror. When you beat Minecraft for the first time, what did you expect to see? In a game true to Lovecraft's vision of the world, perhaps there would be no ending, only darkness, no light, no reason, no further clarification, just the end. Instead, we have a poem. Maybe you skipped it the first time you played Minecraft. When the game first came out, this wasn't a possibility. So core to the fundamental worldview of Minecraft was this poem, that the game's creator, Notch, insisted that everyone who played should be made to sit through it. The man who wrote the poem, though commonly thought to be Notch, is actually a man named Julian Goff, who said, in his own words, "It seemed to write itself. That is, in writing it, I had a strong feeling that the universe seemed to want to address people directly, and it was doing so through me." Julian was never compensated adequately for his vital contribution to the game. His story of the battle for creative ownership of his work is a long and complicated one, and better read in his words than mine. If you have time, please read his article on it. I've linked it in the description of this video. For a long time, the poem lay in a copyright gray area, having been commissioned for Minecraft, but the full rights still not secured. Finally, in December 2022, he dedicated it to the public domain. No one would be allowed to own the words of the universe. And somehow, this poem, which is technically not legally owned by Mojang nor Microsoft, but by one Irishman who wrote with the guidance of the universe and made it available to all of us, this poem feels true to the idea of Minecraft. And it isn't a poem of despair, of cosmic insignificance, but of cosmic love. H.P. Lovecraft was right about one thing. Humans are not the center of the universe. Anthropocentrism is a deeply flawed view of the world, and the source of much of the suffering we create for the planet and for ourselves. But in his rampant fear and despair in the face of things he could not understand, Lovecraft made the same mistake at the core of anthropocentrism. He saw humans as separate from the vastness, as fading lights in the eternal dark. We are not insignificant in the grand scope of the universe, because we are the universe, and the universe is us.